Hi everybody, welcome back to another installment of Billboard Comics. I'm Bill, and this is another installment of our subsection, Girlfriend's Guide to Comic Books, and another installment of our subsection, on the top 20 most valuable comic books of each individual era. Today we're going to talk about the Copper Age. Copper Age is when I started collecting comic books in earnest. Interesting to see a lot of my comic books I have on here, but also interesting a lot of stuff that I don't have on here. It's interesting, and first of all, I have to apologize for my hair. I had my hat on. I tried to record all these at the same time and got too hot, so I look like a Yugoslavian gangster. Where's my money? The whole concept of this is this is taken from the 2024 Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. By the time you're watching this, the 2025 version might come out. If you own it, you might compare the list with that and find discrepancies in both order and ranking of books and pricing. Again, like I said, I didn't have access as I'm filming this to that volume, so I'm going from this. But to kind of counteract that, I'm also including figures that are relatively current at the time I'm filming this from Key Collector and also my comic-based database program. For the comic-based database program, for low and high I'm going for CGC 9.8 CGC graded, and for low I'm going for a raw copy in poor condition. Just so you know where I'm getting the range from. Key Collector gives you the high and low automatically on that stuff. Once you get that out of the way, if you are interested in this, please subscribe. We have a whole bunch that I've already made, and there's going to be one more after this for Modern Era. If you subscribe, if you like it, and if you have any issues or questions, leave a comment. We appreciate it, and it helps with the algorithm. It helps me keep this thing going. All right, let's start with number 20. Number 20 is Grendel number 1. The year it came out was 1983. Overstreet has the prices being $285. Key Collector recommends the high as being sold for $275 and a low going for $18. While Comic Base has a high in CGC 9.8 of $440 and a low, which is the poor condition, raw, being $6. This is the second appearance and origin of Matt Wagner's character, Grendel. Really interesting character. I liked his second series a lot. Very dark, very disturbing, very kind of makes you wonder why it hasn't been adapted into movies or TVs yet. Has a very cinematic stuff, very mature kind of. I think I read the second series way before I should have. I was way too young to be reading that sort of stuff. But I digress. This is the second appearance and his first appearance in his own title. So that's why it's on here. Number 19 is Spider-Man Gold variant, number 1. Yes, we have officially, even though the last one had a number of price variants, entered into the realm of variant covers. This is, of course, this is not going to be the first or only Spider-Man number 1 variant cover on here. Spoiler warning. But this is I believe it was like a third printing kind of variant. The main cover, but with a background and all the webs done in gold ink. Released in 1990, as every issue of Spider-Man number 1 was, of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man number 1. Overstreet has it as being worth $310. Key Collector has a high of $650 and a low of $65. This is why I include everything here, because you can see the various differences of pricing systems. So, it pays to shop around to see which vendor follows which kind of system. Comic Base has a recommended high of $410 and a low in poor grade of $5.50. Next up, number 18, we have Swamp Thing number 37. Technically, it is the saga of the Swamp Thing, because it didn't turn over to Swamp Thing until later on in the run. Year's 1985. Overstreet has it as being $340. Key Collector has a recommended high of $300 and a low of $20. No, $30, I'm sorry. Comic Base has a high 9.8 CGC graded as being $265 and a low, which is a beat up poor condition in non-graded form, of $14. The reason why this is on the list is the first appearance of John Constantine, one of the more important and more long-lasting characters created in the Copper Age. It's appeared in movies with Keanu Reeves. I think they're going to sequel to that one. And also on TV series, Legends of Tomorrow, and had his own TV series on NBC for a brief period. Pretty big character, so that's why he's on here. Number 17. Every volume of this, I keep on saying about how I'm surprised why this is so low. This is no different. This is number 17 is New Mutants number 98. 1991. Overstreet has a sale price of $375. Key Collector has a recommended high of $400 and a low of $40. Comic Base has a recommended high of 9.8 CGC graded, if you could find one, as being $825, and a low, which is a beat up poor copy that's ungraded, in $11. This is the first appearance of Deadpool. Deadpool, this low. This is a weird kind of era because there's a lot of characters. Like independent comic books are really big. Image was coming about. A whole bunch of other stuff. So like there's a whole bunch of stuff like here like this, but I'd expect like this to be in the top 5, if not number 1. But it's all probably like what takes a hit at this because they came out with thousands and hundreds of this, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but like maybe hundreds of thousands. So many copies of this. So it's not exactly rare. It's important, but it's not rare because there's so many copies available. But nonetheless, Deadpool is one of the most exciting characters in the MCU now, officially, and throughout comic books. So seeing it this low is like really disconcerting. You can make discuss in the comments if you think it's too low when you see all the rest of them, and see how it is. Up at 16 is Evil Ernie number 1. Speaking of independent comics and independent comic characters, created the same year as Deadpool, 1991. Overstreet has the record sales being $400. Key Collector has a high of $550 and a low of $50. And Comic Base has a high of 9.8 CGC graded as $340 and a low of $1.75. This is, of course, the first appearance of the horror character done by Brian Pulido of Evil Ernie. It's also, as I figured out after I did the whole little graphic at the beginning, and I apologize for that, I believe apparently it's the first appearance of Lady Death, another popular character from the Chaos imprint. So we got 2 very big independent first appearances here, and that's probably why it's better than Deadpool. Next up is our second Spider-Man number 1 variant. It's the Platinum variant. I think this was just a variant released with no kind of attachment to a multiple printing or anything like that. Once again, 1990. Overstreet has it as being $410. Key Collector recommends the high sale be $600 and the low being $60. And Comic Base has a recommended high as being $590 and a low, that's for CGC graded 9.8, and a low for $8. Again, it's a variant, it's one of the popular variants around. It's kind of weird because I could have gotten a whole set of these variants from a local comic shop for $75. I didn't see it, but somebody else came in and saw it and took it out from underneath me, and fair game. But yeah, now I'm seeing these. You've got a good deal, buddy. Congratulations. Next up, we have a tie. Looks like it is a tie for number 13. First up is Caliber Presents number 1. Caliber is a independent press book. Year's 1989. Overstreet has a value of $425. Key Collector has a recommended high of $600 and a low of $60. Comic Base has a high, which would be 9.8 CGC, as being $600 and a low of $8, which is the ripped apart, dog chewed it up, poor, ungraded condition. Reason why this is so expensive? You've never heard of it? It's the first appearance of The Crow. As you might know from the One Good Movie starring Brandon Lee and the crappy sequels and the abysmal remake that just came out. It's a very important character in the comic books. Very low print run. Independent books don't really have that. A lot of stuff like this. Extremely hard to get, but for such a vital, important, and historically pertinent character, Yeah, this is why it's on the list here at number 13. Taking up the other 13 is another first appearance, this time from a mainstream Marvel book, Amazing Spider-Man number 238. This is from 1983. Overstreet has the value of this as being $4.25. Key Collector has a recommended high of $300 and a low price of $30. Comic Base has a recommended high of 9.8 CGC, of course, of being $360 and a low of looks like $11.75. This is the first appearance of Hobgoblin in comic books. For a time, he was a very popular comic book character, a nemesis for Spider-Man, and he was mysterious. Nobody knew exactly what he was. Over recent past, I don't believe he's actually been that big of a deal. I've been kind of like following sporadically Spider-Man. I haven't really seen him come back that often. At the time, he was like the big thing in comic books. So his first appearance is very expensive, but it's also made more expensive because the book had a advertising insert of tattoos, like from like a company that was advertising like tattoo stuff. You could like, you know, temporary tattoos. You wet it, put it on your skin, and like a butterfly comes on or whatever. A lot of these copies lose their value because those tattoos are not in the actual comic book. So I imagine this version is the one that is complete with that tattoo version. If you don't have the tattoos, it's probably not. It wouldn't even rank in the top 20. Next up is number 12 is Vampirella number 113 from 1988. Overstreet has the price as being $575. Key Collector has a recommended high of $300 and a low of $30. Comic Base has a recommended high of $1.125 thousand and a low of $15. This is the first Vampirella book published by Harris Comics. It was a property that was once owned by Warren Comic Books, and one of the most famous books that come out of Warren Comics in the 70s, and is a continuation of the numbering of their series back then. I don't know if it's in the same size or not. It is kind of rare because it's like their way of saying like, hey, we got the title now, here we go. And they only published this issue and then started off with a whole bunch of new number ones. There's like 50 different Vampirella series, and eventually moved on to Dynamite and a whole bunch of other ones, and it's still being published today. Dynamite is still publishing like a series continuously with 5,000 variant covers. So got that. We have a tie for number 10. So we are in the top 10 already. Time flies when there's a lot of ties. First tie for 10 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 2. This is the second issue, of course, of the independent comic book sensation, if you will. Limited print run. Also a very popular book. It was from 1984. Overstreet has a sale of $600 for this. Key Collector has a recommended high of $1,000 and a recommended low of $100. Comic Base says that a CGC 9.8 should set you back $470, and a low beat-up copy should cost you $6. Again, second appearance of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you can just see the variance and difference in price by what each grading thing considers. One is higher than what Overstreet recommends as the high sale, and the other one is lower, much lower. Tied for number 10 is Amazing Spider-Man number 300. The year is 1988. Overstreet has the price at $600, a record sale price at $600, which is also what Key Collector recommends the high price being. Low price being $60. Comic Base also has a high price as being $510, and a low price as being $7. This is the first appearance of Venom, an actual full. He made a couple cameo appearances in other 2 issues leading up to this. You could make an argument that his first appearance was back in Amazing Spider-Man 252, because that's when the costume that became part of Venom. I have a thing on Film Buff Online about that, saying about the whole rigmarole about that. Very convoluted, very weird, very stuff. But this is his first appearance in full with Todd McFarlane artwork, so that's why you have to pay that premium for it. Next up is, I own that one. So I forgot to tell you about what I own. I'm falling behind my bragging. Gosh darn it. Let's see, I have the New Mutants 98. I have the Swamp Thing, Saga Swamp Thing number 37. I have Amazing Spider-Man number 238, but without the tattoos. And I also have 300. I also have the next one too, number 9, which is Sandman number 8. This is the Neil Gaiman one. I think it came out in 1988 or 89. Overstreet has the sale value, recorded sales being $675. Key Collector recommends the highest being, however, as being $110 with a low of $10. And Comic Base has a high, which would be 9.8 CGC, of being $340, and a low, which would be poor condition, as being $4.50. This is the first appearance of the very popular character Death in the Sandman book, which probably, like, I just find it interesting that the first appearance of Sandman doesn't even rank in the top 20, but the first appearance of his sister, because she's so much more popular than he is, ranks. Next up is 8, which is Comico Primer number 2. This is from 1982. Overstreet has a value of $775 with a high of $685 and a low price of $65. Comic Base has a recommended high in CGC 9.8 of $650 and a low price of poor, ungraded condition as being $8.50. Easier for me to say. It's the first appearance of Grendel in comic books. This is kind of like a anthology put out by Comico with like samplings of their future wares and stuff like this. So before it got its Grendel number 1, which was number 20 on this list, it appeared here. So that's why it's getting a little boost above its character's actual first appearance in its own comic book. Next up, we have 2 Miracle Men comic books that are so rare that I had a hard time finding pictures for them, and they do not appear on the Comic Base database software. They are Miracle Man Blue and Miracle Man Gold. Miracle Man is at 7. They both came out in 1985. Miracle Man Blue has a high recorded price of $850, with Key Collector recommending the high being $250 and the low being $20. This was a limited giveaway, I think, or sold at San Diego Comic-Con around the time. It was limited only 600 copies. That's why that's where it is. They also had a gold variant at the time, which Overstreet records a sale as being $1,000. Key Collector has the high as being $600 and low being $60. And like I said again, it's kind of like Comic Base doesn't have anything for it because it's that rare. It was only released at the same San Diego Comic-Con, but it was limited to 400 copies instead of 600 copies. So there's only 400 copies that exists anywhere. So that's why it's 6 and 7 on here. Let's move on to the top 5 now, shall we? Number 5 is The Crow, number 1, from it's the Caliber series. The Crow has a number of series telling the same story from various publishers, but this is the first one. This is the first appearance of Crow in his own series. As you recall from earlier, it made an appearance in Caliber Presents, number 1, and it spun off in its own series. It was 1989. Overstreet recommends the price as being $1,050. Key Collector has the high as being $1,200, with the low being $120. Comic Base has the high recommended being $1,275,000, and the low being $17. Like I said, this is the second appearance of Crow altogether, and the first appearance in his own series. Like I said, look for the Caliber one. Thunder Run might be a little pricey, but it's not the original one. Kitchen Sink 2, just look for Caliber. Number 4 is Albedo number 2. This is a funny animal book from 1984. Overstreet recommends this being $8,500. Key Collector has the recommended high as being $9,500 and low being $950. Comic Base has that recommended high as being $12,500 and a low of $165. Why is this so expensive for a funny animal book? What funny animal could possibly be this big? This was the first appearance of a character called Usagi Yojimbo. Many people who might not know comic books might not know this character. This might be totally new to you. But inside comic books, you still might not know who he is because he's kind of like an obscure kind of character. But he's very successful. He's one. It came from the underground, created by Stan Sakai, who is I believe the letterer for Gru, and it's kind of like a bunny rabbit taken in the time of the samurai. And it's very fascinating. One of my favorite characters. This has had, it's very popular comic books. It's been long running. They're still making comic books even to this day. has made a little stuff into like other things. I don't know if it appeared in a cartoon, but I know it appeared in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. I actually have an action figure in storage of Usagi Yojimbo. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I actually have this in my hands. So it has had some kind of like pop culture cachet. Again, this is probably not only due to the fact that he's popular, this didn't have a really big print run to begin with. During my time when it comes like for comic book values, either have some kind of provenance, be rare, or like some sort of forced appearance or something like this. Pick two. So that's the two here. So, but speaking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let's go on to the top three, which are all kind of tied in together. They're all published by Mirage Comics, which is the original publisher of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all are involved in it somewhere. First up is number 3 is Gobbledygook number 2. It was published in 1984. Overstreet Price Guide has it at $12,000. The key collector recommending the top being $6,000 and the low being $600. And Comic Base has a high, which would be a 9.8 CGC, being $15,000, and a low being $200. This is because it's low print run, very well indeed. This was like basically Mirage Comics had done out somebody's backyard in their garage, kind of printed kind of thing. Which I'll get to the next entry and tell you that. It features an ad for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in there. It's also an anthology of other characters in that as well. But speaking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, number 1 of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is at number 2, also released in 1984. Overstreet has a record sale of $23,000 for this book. Key Collector has a high grade copy going. I recommend to go for $15,000. $15,000 if you can get it for $15. Chop, get it up, buy 15 of it. And a low of $1,200. Comic Base has a high of $22.2 thousand for a CGC 9.8, and a low beat up, barely hanging together copy for $295. It's the first appearance of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was created by Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. They pulled together a bunch of loans and their income tax refunds and stuff like this, and kind of like print out several copies of this. Incredibly low print run, but it sold like gangbusters and created a multimedia extravaganza empire for them, which they eventually sold off to Nickelodeon, who now owns it. But more power to them, you know. Good for you guys. One of my favorite success stories for comic books. It doesn't get much better than that. And the final one on the list is Gobbledygook number 1. Another Mirage comic book from 1984. Overstreet recommends this being sold for $36,000. Key Collector recommends it go for $3,200 and a low of $180. Comic Base has a high, which would be a 9.8 CGC graded, as being $58,500, and a low of being $775. So once again, is inexplicably popular. I don't know why this is number 1, but I think it's because it's a monstrously low print run. Ad for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1 in it, and the first appearance of a character called Futuretoid, a robotic kind of character that was arguably Mirage's second most famous thing after the Turtles. So it's kind of like, you know, you got all that in there. So it's incredibly hard to find. Like I said, this is like basically done, so it's kind of like hard to find copies in good condition, or at all. And so that's why the price is so high. So that was the Copper Age. We'll be back next week with the Modern Age. If you like this series, give me a thumbs up, hit share, comment down below, subscribe, because there'll be one more coming in this, and there's a whole bunch of other guides out there for other stuff, which you'll see in a playlist over here, and whichever one it's not on, we'll have the last installment of this, the Bronze Age recap, on the other one. Hope you like this, but until next time, keep on collecting.